No, it's not. Okay, this is a good start. There we go. Am I still playing Beethoven? It would appear that way, wouldn't it? Shush, Beethoven. Okay. Are we good? We're good. And it's nobody's there yet. So I'll just keep talking until there are people, because that's what we do around here. Yeah, oh, you're there. Hello. Yeah, we're all good. Do 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 do. If anyone was expecting some sort of sharp dynamic begin right at midnight, then well, get used to live with disappointment. Cause that's not what we do around here. Not ever. No. Is this thing on? Yeah. Yeah. Hello? Testing 1, 2. Good. Is that supposed to be at 0? I now have digital knobs to twiddle and stuff like that. I need more monitors as well. This is a severe problem of mine. I'm sat here in front of a mere 2 monitors. And it is quite simply not enough. I've seen a nice 49-inch monitor that I would like to put below these 2. And then I could have 4 with my laptop. And that might be enough. It's not really 4, it's 3, isn't it? But the big one is as big as 2. Yeah. You can't have too many monitors. That's ultimately the thing. You can't have too many. Is this always what live streams were like? I remember them having more talking on them. But that's the way this goes. It seems to take people a while to turn up, and it usually happens when I've been talking for a while. So I figure I might just talk shit for a bit, but I have nothing to talk shit about. Actually, I have plenty of stuff to talk shit about, don't I? That's pretty much what I do. I've had a fairly uneventful week. That's ultimately my problem. What do you do in an uneventful week? You just sit and moan about how things are boring now. Anyway, do I do an intro to these or do I just start talking? I don't know. Hello, welcome to Early Morning Barking, talking about BPD and MPD by somebody that has both. Just MPD tonight, if I'm honest. I've still got both. I mean, I'm just talking about MPD stuff. And this stuff is driving me up the wall. I'm trying not to swear on YouTube, by the way. That's what happens. That little... It's like talking to my mum or to children. Or to my mum with children. That's me. That makes no sense. So, I've lost my train of thought now. This is what happens when I just talk rubbish. So my plan was to talk about sexual narcissism because this has been a thing that I have been asked about sporadically over the last year and a half or whatever. And it's a bit I'm not all that in touch with for reasons that will come out as we start discussing it. But based on what I know about it and what is known about it and what is said about it, it's very hard to put together into some sort of 10-minute video because it's so complicated and it seems so vague and ethereal. It's such an odd aspect of it. And in just trying to look around to see what information there is on it, there's a complete and total mess on things. And I'll show you what I mean. Because there is so much mixing between the classic narcissist term of calling people narcissists and the difference between that and MPD, and I'm seeing this sexual narcissism linked to BPD and an histrionic personality disorder, and I'm seeing other things that are just a total mess, and so many other stuff, so many other things. It really gets hard to sort of figure stuff out, and I think that digging deeper into this stuff, this is the difference between me and an actual professional, right? That I can look into stuff, and I'm not thick. I can interpret stuff okay. I can read stuff and make sense of it, right? But when there's discussion on a topic within the field, and when the people who actually know what they're talking about are unsure about a particular thing, then I too am very unsure as a result. There's no list of things that this is sexual narcissism, and it's not like MPD. There's not a list of markers, and if you have 5 out of the 9, you've got it. It's not a thing. And it seems to, like I say, it's linked to so many things. It's attached to so many things. It's so difficult to make sense of. And I think there's so much bloody awful writing on the internet as well by people who perhaps know less than me or whatever. It's all very odd. So let's jump into it before I lose my train of thought and stuff. I've got a number of tabs open here that you can't really see, and there's a whole wash of garbage in here and stuff that contradicts other stuff and that sort of thing. Because when you start looking into it, I mean, you come across stuff like the 7 types of narcissists you need to know about, according to a therapist. And we start listing types of narcissists, and they're all done from this point of view. Narcissists you might date. Like, what? That's such a bizarre thing to do, because that's not even a... Right? It's 7 types of narcissists you need to know about. Nobody mentioned dating in this article. And then suddenly, like, oh, these are the types you might date. What? Why did you have to specify that? If you might date them, they're just people that are out there in the world. You didn't have to specify that anyway. And some of these are sort of, you know, the overt, the covert. I live in this sort of area personally and occasionally switch to this overt area. Hypervigilant, oblivious, exhibitionist, the sexual type. Okay. So we have a sort of jumping off point, right? This article here is sort of listing it as being a type of narcissist, in the same way that one can be a malignant narcissist or a covert or overt narcissist or whatever. This is listing it as a completely separate thing. which is one of the only times I've seen that done. Right? I've never elsewhere on the internet, maybe we'll find more articles tonight, but I've never seen it listed as a separate thing on its own. Like, you can be a sexual narcissist, but not a covert or overt narcissist. And that doesn't sit right. That doesn't feel like a thing, because the sexual narcissism everywhere else is talked about how it's much more of a state that any type of person can get into. It's not exclusive of other types of narcissism. And when you start looking at the types of narcissism, you know, 8 types of narcissists. And do they have the 7 that that this article have plus an extra one? And no, actually, they have some others that we don't know about before. So there are obviously several, because I don't think was spiritual or cerebral narcissist on this other list. No. So, I mean, what are you supposed to do with that kind of information? That this is clearly whatever. I clickbait, link farm stuff. I don't know. So, whatever. This has also sexual narcissism. An overly positive, egotistical admiration of their own sexual prowess. They can be consumed by their obsession with sexual performance and the need for the sexual admiration of others. Sexual narcissists are often serial cheaters, use sex to manipulate people, may behave violently during sex. To protect yourself from this type of narcissist, your safest option is to get out of the relationship and seek therapy to help you get through the... Oh, Jesus Christ. I hate this stuff so much. God. This is the trouble I have when I start looking stuff up like this, because it's all done from... Right, so much, like, it feels like 95% of the stuff on the internet that is written about narcissism is written for the audience of women who have been hurt by a narcissist in a relationship. And I can't help but feel that, first of all, this paints a particular picture which is potentially incorrect and misleading about the narcissists that there are out there in the world. And it's very... This is just such clickbait garbage that is just about getting that person to look at this stuff. We're just assuming harm here. You know, we're getting... It's just links to how to get through the breakup. It's... not distressing. It's upsetting to read through. It's difficult to read through because it's all constantly telling you what an evil piece of shit you are. And you're looking at it thinking, but I'm not an evil piece of shit. I'm not that person. I'm not doing this. I've never done this, whatever. And everything is just... It all points at this. And it's like, I'm just trying to find out about something. I'm just trying to research something. And we have to have. But if you've come into contact with these evildoers, you will need therapy. Like, what? You don't know. Anyway. Focus. Sexual narcissism is part of a 3-part narcissism typing system that includes sexual narcissism, somatic narcissism, and cerebral narcissism. None of them are validated by research. But the system has been gaining some popularity as some mental health practitioners use them to further categorize different types of narcissism. Okay. So what that's now admitting is that we have something that is not validated by research. Which makes this a much trickier thing to delve into and be serious about, doesn't it? I mean, like being validated by research is something I'm a big fan of. Um, I really like it when things are validated by research because when they're not, they tend to be made up things. That tends to be the case. It's not always the case, but it tends to be. And I feel like further categorizing types of narcissist makes it just about being specific about what that person is a narcissist about. And maybe that matters to some extent. I don't know. Because I sort of feel like it's all still driven by your MPD markers. All of that stuff is what, does it matter if you're a cerebral narcissist or a somatic narcissist or whatever? If it's all just that's how it's coming out. And maybe from a treatment perspective, that is important to know, but to classify it, whatever, I'm not going to lose any sleep over that. I don't feel like that's something I need to worry about. But what I have learned is that sexual narcissism is somewhat blah. Like, oof. It's just, is it a thing? What even is it? Because it's not validated by research. It's not something that is a clear cut, backed up thing. And I sort of, you run across stuff in the middle. What you should know about sex with a narcissist. And this sort of comes closer, but gets a bit, again, this is too general. This is just talking about this concept that there is a narcissist and they will behave like this. And that's just simply not the case. That's just a made up thing, right? And we've been over and we all know why. And so for articles like this, what does narcissistic sexual behavior look like? They only seem to care about physical pleasure. They need a lot of praise. They react poorly when you disagree with them. They feel entitled to sex. And this feels very much like we're just going through the MPD criteria and adding sex and relationships to it as a theme. Right? I mean, this is a rewording of stuff. Need to be praised, taking criticism badly, a lack of empathy, entitlement, that sort of thing. You've just taken what we already know about MPD and you've added sex to it, which again is such clickbait. Sort of like, what are you supposed to take from that when we have these other things going on? This one's very vague. Some typical traits of sexual narcissists include the following: lack of intimacy. Narcissists put their own physical needs first, and you see, this is, again, what are we talking about? What are you talking about? Because are we talking, right, relationships with sexual narcissists can be difficult. Do we assume that throughout the rest of this, when you mention the narcissist or narcissists, that we're talking about sexual narcissists? And is that the same type of sexual narcissist that we're talking about here, which is admittedly not validated by research and just a cover of the other types that are actual types? So where were we? How does that apply to this? Narcissists put their own physical needs first and do not seek to emotionally connect with their partners. For sexual narcissists, sex itself is more important than the partner's needs, wishes, or concerns. Okay. Expectations. Narcissists may expect their partners to participate in sexual activities that make partners uncomfortable. They may also expect partners to be available for sex at the narcissist's whim. If expectations are not fulfilled, the narcissist may bully the partner, make the partner feel guilty, or become violent. You see, now we're onto some sort of... It is more of pushing these sort of MPD traits into a sexual context. But I suppose that is ultimately what we're talking about. And this seems a little bit more intelligently done than that MedLife article. Was it MedLife? Have I already lost it? I don't know. I'm easily confused. Feelings of superiority. Narcissists may belittle and berate their partners to increase their feelings of self-worth. Is that necessarily a sexual thing? We're fully capable of that day to day. This is why I am irritated by this vagueness around it and this lack of agreement and this how things sound very much like other things. That is so vague. Narcissists may belittle and berate their partners to increase their feelings of self-worth. Yes, absolutely. How is that specific to sexual narcissism? That's where I start to lose the plot on this. That's where I need more information, and I maybe need it explained to me differently. I don't know. But yeah, narcissists may belittle and berate their partners to increase their feelings of self-worth. Absolutely. But not necessarily sexually or exclusively sexually. And I don't, are we applying this sexually? Because they've not actually mentioned that here. I'll move on. Sensitivity to critique and comparison. Sexual narcissists may become unhappy if they think other people are having more or better sex than they are. Yeah. Again, right. I suppose that if this is a thing, then what we're looking at is somebody who would take this too far, because that is usually the state with these sorts of things. Some of them, especially in narcissism, sound pretty reasonable, right? Especially when we talk about things like self-confidence and self-belief and that sort of thing. And you've had that moment where you're explaining it to a new person and you're talking about, well, you have a lot of self-confidence, and they go, well, what's wrong with that? I have self-confidence, why can't you have a lot of it? And you have to explain, now, it's really rather too much self-confidence. And I suppose when we're talking about people being unhappy that they think other people are having more or better sex than they are, aren't a lot of people thinking that? Is that a thing that can we say no? People will go through their entire lives and never worry about that. Most people will at some point. So what we're talking about in terms of a cluster B personality disorder is ending up being really concerned about this particular issue. Like as a constant worry with a compulsion to do something about it. To be constantly talking about it, constantly prying with other people, trying to find out what their sex life is about, and that kind of, so you can compare. Unless you're getting into a crazy situation where you're comparing yourself to porn, which is just, well, that's just insanity. This kind of pushes me in much more of an interesting direction. But it's still not particularly helpful. And I mean, what else do we have? Infidelity and sex addiction. Research suggests that what research? Nothing of this is validated by research. Research suggests that sexual narcissists are more likely to be unfaithful to their partners. They might also be more prone to sex addiction. Was this written by someone in their sleep? You occasionally come across pages of the internet that force you to question why they exist, and this is one of those. Why did somebody take the time to write down such vague and pointless information? When we're talking about a group of people like people with NPD, we're talking about a group that is more likely to be unfaithful to their partner. For a variety of reasons, for that self-validation, for that, well, it's not self-validation, is it? It's specifically outside validation. And it may be even that inner validation of feeling attractive, being able to cheat, being able to do all of those things and that sort of stuff. There are clearly a lot of narcissistic reasons why somebody with NPD would justify cheating. Or maybe not even justify it, but at least do it. Because I think we're perfectly capable of doing stuff we know is wrong because it suits us. And that's what a lot of this sounds like. That's what a lot of this points to at the moment. And it's all a bit obvious, to be perfectly honest. I'm going to try and move things out of the way. Oh, this was the Healthline article. Which again is that same thing, isn't it? This is just entitlement. Yeah, we went through that. We went through that. We went through that. That's just NPD. What to know about sexual narcissism? Sexual narcissism is when a person has an unrealistic view of their sexuality. They may experience an inflated sense of sex appeal and an exaggerated idea of their sexual skills. They may also only care for their own sexual satisfaction. These traits can make it difficult to maintain healthy relationships. Well, yeah. A sexual narcissist is a person who possesses narcissistic traits such as entitlement, low empathy, or superiority within a sexual context. They may coerce and manipulate others to fulfill their own physical and sexual needs, and may not care for the wishes or concerns of others. For this reason, some may also refer to sexual narcissism as sexual entitlement. That's the first time we've come across that, but okay. This is much more interesting, and the fact this is on Medical News Today makes me a little happier, but, you know, I've had a lot of more useful articles from this sort of thing, and it seems a little less wishy-washy. And this we go into. Researchers developed the sexual narcissism scale. Where were you with this? All these people who were like, oh, it's not backed up by research, because everyone else is mentioning, I've lost tabs now. Everyone else is mentioning quite a lot of medical research. So we're finding garbage articles on the internet. Okay, to highlight important components of narcissism that are typically active in sexual domains, these patterns of behavior usually include sexual exploitation, sexual entitlement, low sexual empathy, inflated sense of sexual skills. In addition to the above, sexual narcissists may also display the following characteristics: high level of sexual self-esteem, preoccupation with sex and sexual sensation seeking, promiscuous nature, high levels of infidelity, and sensitivity to perceived criticism. Okay, this is my favorite article so far. It does sound like just a description of men, but we'll move on. Sexual narcissism versus NPD. Okay, this is what we're looking for. While sexual narcissism and NPD may sound similar, they are different. Namely, sexual narcissism is not a personality disorder nor a mental health condition. Instead, it refers to traits of narcissism that only appear in sexual behaviors. People can display traits of sexual narcissism without meeting the diagnostic criteria for NPD. Additionally, while a person with traits of NPD may display narcissistic traits in their sexual relationships, these traits will also appear in other areas of life and not just within their sex life. This is what we were saying earlier. People with MPD may show no narcissistic traits within a sexual context, as the diagnostic criteria for MPD do not involve a person's sexual behavior. I feel happier with this. This seems a lot more sensible, doesn't it? I'm much more comfortable now. So, problematic relationship patterns. Sexual entitlement. Sexual narcissists may feel that others owe them sex and that they have a right to sex on demand. Yeah, okay. So, hang on. So, what this was actually saying is that it is what I was saying earlier, that it is a group of traits that come out of narcissism in a sexual realm, but it's not a thing in and of itself. You can just do these things. Well, I suppose as it is with all of them. Sexual entitlement, sexual exploitation. They may be willing to manipulate or coerce others into having sex. A lack of empathy. That's a common just MPD thing. Need for admiration. Have excessive need for admiration, especially for their sexual abilities. Higher rates of infidelity occur with sexual narcissism. That's kind of fairly obvious. A charming pickup artist. Sexual narcissists will be initially charming and employ manipulative dating techniques designed specifically to get a potential partner into bed. Yeah, okay. Sexual aggression. High levels of sexual narcissism and entitlement may be a predictor of sexual aggression. Well, yeah, I mean, but you're gonna have had all of them there at that point, aren't you? So that makes sense. I get you there. Okay. Convincing a potential sexual narcissist to get help may escalate their behavior, since they may not perceive they have a problem and may attempt to put the blame on others. Again, classic MPD stuff. There's some nasty shit in there, isn't there? I mean, there's a few things that are like very narcissist. Your lack of empathy, your need for admiration, even your charming pickup artist stuff. I mean, that's your superficial charm, right? That's what we all practice all the time, and wherever it's designed to get somebody. Yeah, in this case, we're putting a sexual link on it, but it's behavior that's familiar, I think, to a lot of us in the MPD realm, whatever your end goal is. Um, the others seem a lot more harmful. I mean, especially sexual exploitation. I mean, it is exploitative. It's right there in the name. It's not difficult, that one. It's not hidden. They may be willing to manipulate or coerce others into having sex. I mean, that's kind of otherwise known as sexual assault. It certainly feels a little rapey, to be honest. I apparently don't want to monetize this one at all, but it's not good, is it? You don't want to be doing that. That can kind of make my screen crawl just to talk about it. And to be entitled to sex and that sort of thing. These are behaviors that are harmful to other people. These are external behaviors that cause us to hurt others in a fairly horrible way. This stuff, the sexual exploitation in particular, right? This is the stuff that puts people in therapy. This is the stuff that really, really hurts other people and causes problems and is just unforgivable behavior. But you can see where it comes from, right? This is all about I want a thing. And if I can get that out of somebody, why should I not get that out of somebody? This is that classic narcissist pattern of thinking. It's being applied to sex. But it could be anything, couldn't it, right? You have a thing I want. Give it me. and I'll find a way to get that thing out of you. I am entitled to that thing. You are there to serve me in that manner. It's 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 classic narcissistic thinking applied to sexuality with added rapiness. Not very nice at all, is it? I mean, again, it's that it sort of sets you wondering, right? It sets your mind going, have I done any of that? Do I do any of that? Right? And because, some of these things, I think, are things it's potentially possible to have experienced once or twice in your life. And they're things, I mean, they're fairly vague. And I think it's possible to start worrying about whether or not this is a thing you do or a thing you have done. And I think the important thing to remember is, as I said near the beginning of the video, with these things, we're talking about an extreme and we're talking about repeated behavior over a period of time. And with narcissistic stuff, we're talking about intention behind things. So, when you read things like charming pickup artist, sexual narcissists will be initially charming and employ manipulative dating techniques designed to specifically get a potential partner into bed. That's, I mean, to what degree is that seeing somebody you fancy and going to talk to someone with the intention of sleeping with them? Does that make you a sexual narcissist? No, clearly that's not what we're talking about. I mean, that is pulling. That is picking someone up. That is so many things. That thing. And it would be ludicrous to just apply sexual narcissist to all of those people who've ever chatted someone up in a bar or whatever. That sounds a bit much, doesn't it? That sounds a bit over the top. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about a much more. It's definitely creepier. It's definitely a much more pickup artist kind of thing. The guys who talk about tricks of getting women into bed, like how do you trick a woman into bed? Oh, that's just so. It makes me kind of sick in the back of my mouth a little bit just to say it out loud and think that there are guys out there that think this sort of stuff. And I think that's where this. I don't know. That's perhaps what this all starts to sound like. This is that creepy pickup artist stuff. All of it. That lack of empathy, that lack of humanizing someone, of not humanizing, just understanding they are a human and not a thing that is there for you to be got or to be tricked. That you're entitled to with your sexual entitlement, that you can manipulate others by tricking them, sexual exploitation, and to be feeling a need to do that, to not be able to connect with someone on an emotional level, bringing out that lack of empathy and repeated doing of it, that need for admiration. Dear God, this isn't a description of men. This is a description of screwed up incel thinking. Is it incel? It's not even that. No, it's the other way. It's it just reminds me of every single example of like pickup artistry and the guys who do that sort of thing that I've ever seen. or at least the guy, when I talk about the guys who do that sort of thing, the guys who peddle that sort of stuff. Um, I think the last stuff I saw was some guy who'd put together like a dating guide or a pickup guide video game thing, because it was I came across it because I was watching Jim Sterling on YouTube really lay into him, because his thing was garbage, and it was full of stuff like this, like how to trick women and how to pick women up in various scenarios and that sort of thing. And what becomes clear is that that guy is the sexual narcissist, right? That guy who's making that stuff, who can think like this. And he's decided he's found a way to sort of peddle it as a product he can sell and push onto other guys. And for him, it might get him somewhere in his sexual narcissism, because that's what he's wrapped up in. He's having this day-to-day, minute-to-minute sexual entitlement, need for admiration, sexual aggression, that need to be pushing himself to be seen as someone who just gets all the women, that feeling of superiority being fed by that. You know, it's very primal, it's very animalistic. I can get all the women, therefore I'm a superior man. How is, that's very understandable. That's very simple and basic. But people are having this and just passing it on to I'm falling off my chair, passing it on to other men and just making them misogynistic pricks, that's not good. That's my understatement of the stream. Yeah. Currently, there is no cure or treatment or medicine to treat NPD, narcissistic traits, or sexual narcissism specifically. However, psychotherapy can be beneficial and enable people to understand their behavior, manage emotions, and take responsibility for their actions. It can also help them build self-esteem and healthier relationships. That feels a little... I don't know. I mean, I know there's no medication. I can't really argue that, but no treatment. But okay. Apart from this treatment, am I just too down on the whole thing? I just get annoyed. I just get annoyed with it all. Whilst there's not much research investigating treatment for sexual narcissism, would it not be fair to say it's probably therapy? We have all these things, right? We have all these cluster B personality disorders. And for all of them, talking therapy is a highly recommended form of treatment, right? Some people might be more suited to DBT, which is a bit more practical and a bit more one-on-one. But talking therapy, be that in a group or indeed one-on-one, is pretty much a recommended best treatment for all these cluster B things. And of course, there are medications as well. And so I think it's safe to assume at this point that the treatment for sexual narcissism is not a pot on your leg, right? I think, and I'm saying this again with no medical backing and research, but it's probably just going to be therapy, isn't it? There's not much research investigating treatment for sexual narcissism. What might we do? What could we possibly do? Just therapy, maybe. It's not going to be hammers, is it? Just examining behavior, talking about behavior. Where do these problems come from? Why are these things important to you? If I mean, look, lack of empathy, need for admiration, all of that sort of stuff. Maybe you treat those the same way you treat MPD with therapy. And then so maybe the rest of it goes hand in hand with that. Maybe you start talking about, well, why do you feel entitled to cheat? But then that's entitlement. I said it right there, didn't I? Why do you feel entitled? Why is it so important that you have the best sex life that it's possible to have? Right? With that whole, like, this is where digging into things becomes important, right? Because I think, I kind of trip myself up with my own rhetorical question. Why is it important to you to have the best and most fulfilling sex life that you could have? Well, okay, why would you not want that? Why would anyone go, oh, no, I don't want the best and most fulfilling sex life I could have. I'll settle for something that's mediocre and slightly unfulfilling. What? No. That's, of course everyone would want that. But we dig deeper. Like, why do you want that? Because, of course, your first answer is why wouldn't you? But there are other answers to that question that can be said along with that answer. That whole, well, makes me look good. How awesome am I if I can get all the women? I have friends who can't get a woman at all, and I've got 4 on the go. You can dig into these things. Like, well, why does that make you feel superior? Right? Is it actually a competition? Right? Does anyone really care how many people you're shagging? Does it actually make you superior? Because I would argue it doesn't. Does it? Unless it's something, it would only make you impressive to people who are equally as concerned with such things. And if they are, then they might be other sexual narcissists and they probably just hate you anyway. But then it's fun to be hated by people for being better at a thing they wish they were good at, isn't it? That's also a thing. That just adds to the ego boost of it. Oh, you wish you were good at this thing I'm good at? you know. That's that just adds to it. Complications and long-term problems. Well, all this stuff I would imagine that you've just mentioned. I mean, infidelity, higher rates of infidelity occur with sexual narcissists. Higher rates of infidelity occur with narcissists because of entitlement, because of need for validation, whatever. But I guess, again, we're talking about people who have a sexual need that can't be provided for by their partner for whatever reason, if they have a partner. If you don't have a partner, you can't commit infidelity, can you? So let's assume. So let's assume that they have a partner, because otherwise you can't cheat on anyone, can you? Idiot. I've distracted myself with my own stupidity now. I apologize. These things happen from time to time. I'm just going to have a drink and calm down. Where was I? Infidelity. I can see why. And I think there are ways around this, but it's when all mixed together, these things point to a lot of fronting behavior, right? Of, I do this so I'm not this. That's a thing that you get a lot of in MPD. That is what it is. That's what the narcissism is. I am this, so I'm not this. I am a sexual god, whatever. Therefore, I am attractive, I am liked, I am popular. I am not unattractive, unliked, unpopular. anxious, afraid, alone, lonely, scared, all these other negative things. I can't be those because I'm this. And with that lack of empathy mixed in, it it will. I can see how this sort of pushes a person, not allows a person to continue and snowball with activity and intensity of activity and that sort of thing, and eventually hitting that wall where your partner is ready to bail out, you know? And then that brings out a mix of sexual exploitation, pushing somebody further than they're comfortable going, and then eventually infidelity when you've pushed someone as far as they can go, if not further, and you need to go off and do your own thing. These all feel like easily pick apartable kind of things, but stuff that is just so harmful. And God, this will. I'm willing to bet this applies massively more to men than it does to women, hugely more. It won't be exclusive, but I think this is going to be heavily influenced by the difference in attitudes to sex, and the difference in attitudes that we have put upon us. You know, there's that gender inequality between men and women of, you know, if a man goes out and sleeps with 100 women, he's a stud. If a woman goes out and sleeps with 100 men, she's a slag. And okay, we have to, just for the point of this, I'm going to remove the inequality of it, but this, because I'm talking about the men in this case, it's that pressure, right? That if you sleep with 100 women, you're a stud. So we've numbered this, right? We've ranked it. We've said the more you do, the better you are. Therefore, if you've done more than somebody else, you're better than them. We've created a thing, a level of competition on some level. And it's easy to see how a person, particularly with MPD, can get caught up in this and just get focused on this competition. I need to go out and pull more girls than my mates do when we go out, because then they'll all be jealous of me. They'll all wish that they could do what I could do. So, of course, people get caught up in this. And then that need to sort of push things further, because you reach a point where I think, you know, to continually get a hit from this, you have to be doing something more than what you think everybody else is doing. And if you reach parity with everybody, you have to then go another step. And that's easy to do in a sexual world. That's when you start ramping it up so you can have all that narcissistic hit that comes with it. Which is, depending on your situation, harmful or unharmful, right? Again, we're talking about with this stuff extremes. So people that do stuff that genuinely injures them or genuinely puts their health at risk, right? But if you end up in a situation, in a relationship with a partner or whatever, and you want to go further and you're coercing people and pushing people, it's just so harmful. It's just such harmful behavior. And clearly, God, it worries me, because I think we live in, we're continually pushing that window of what's acceptable. We are continually growing what is middle of the road, what is normal. And to start to have this group of people who always have to exist at least one step ahead and need or don't care about the harm done when pulling others along with them. It seems like a very self-fulfilling feedback loop of bad things potentially able to happen. I'm kind of, it's a scary side of narcissism. It really is. Um, it creeps me out a lot. And honestly, the more you dig into it, the more you think, well, what is there in my life that makes me anywhere close to any of this? And I got it. You sort of try and rationalize it. Like, you dig deep enough, you'll find something, right? You'll find some thought or some whatever. And God, it's just so weird and so close to stuff. How to recognize sexual narcissism and what to do next. Probably seek therapy for the evil harm done to you. There is nothing wrong with having confidence in your sexual abilities. In fact, sexual self-esteem can even have a positive impact on overall well-being. Thank you again, Captain Obvious. It's also perfectly normal to occasionally get caught up in the moment during sex and fixate on your own pleasure. These things don't automatically suggest narcissism, especially when you care about your partner's desires and want to connect on an emotional level too. I was just saying all of this, healthline.com. A key difference lies in the fact that people with sexual narcissism generally believe they have a right to sex, especially within the context of a romantic relationship. They pursue sex for physical enjoyment, not emotional connection, and they might exploit or manipulate partners in order to have sex. Okay, yeah, we know this now. Older research. There's so much research on this stuff. There's even old research now. But suggests this behavior pattern has its roots in insecurity and low self-esteem. Okay, Captain Obvious returns. We've said this before. Traits of sexual narcissism show up across someone's sexual relationships, not just with one partner or for a brief period. This is what I was saying. It's prolonged. It's examples of behavior repeated over years and years and that sort of thing. It's not that thing you did that time. I'm starting to feel like I'm making it sound like I have some dirty, horrible secret from my past. Like there's something maybe I did a long time ago and it keeps me awake at night. And I'm like, there isn't. There isn't. People with sexual narcissism pursue sex because it benefits them. Well, I like to pursue sex for the benefit of mankind. Okay. Along with physical enjoyment, sex offers validation of their physical prowess. Still, they may not necessarily have a preoccupation with sexual thoughts or behaviors. That entire paragraph is meaningless. You wrote all those words for no reason, to say nothing. Okay. We're all pursuing sex because it benefits us. Is there a difference between sexual narcissism? In short, yes. Sexual narcissism, what experts call global narcissism. I've never heard that before. I swear they just make this stuff up as they're typing. Where's my article with types of narcissists? Hey, MBG Mindfulness or mindbodygreen.com. Okay. What an awful name for a website, but did you not know? You missed global narcissism. But I assume that's all narcissisms except sexual narcissism. What does that sentence mean? How does that fit into what I've been reading tonight? Sexual narcissism refers to narcissistic traits, such as entitlement, low empathy, or superiority that show up specifically in sexual behavior. This term describes a pattern of behavior that shows up in someone's attitudes and beliefs about sex. That's the same sentence again with different words. It isn't considered a personality disorder or specific mental health condition. Calm blue ocean. Narcissism is a personality disorder. Experts have reached a general consensus on its typical traits, and you'll find specific diagnostic criteria in the DSM. The traits and behaviors associated with this condition typically show up across multiple areas of life. So, it is certainly possible for someone with an attitude of sexual entitlement to also meet the criteria for MPD, but this may not always be the case. Again, this is an awful article. Who wrote this? Crystal Rapole on March 1st, 2021. This is a bloody awful, awful article. Well, let's keep going, because what else are we going to do? Another key difference between the two lies in the link between sexual narcissism and sexual aggression. Unlike sexual narcissism, MPD doesn't necessarily suggest a higher likelihood of behaving in sexually aggressive ways. How are we defining sexual aggression in this context? Are we... I have two versions of that in my head. There's the sexual aggression of someone being physically aggressive and rough during a sexual encounter. And then there's the sexual aggression of aggressively pursuing sex. Like being really obvious. Just aggressively pursuing sex. I would also define as sexual aggression. And I'm not saying that either is right or wrong in this context. I'm just unclear on which one we're actually talking about. Or if we're talking about both, I don't know. And it was just the way it was put in that last paragraph that kind of tripped me up, like that one. Maybe this will help as they tell us what sexual narcissism looks like. Generally speaking, sexual narcissism involves many of the same traits associated. But, right, so a partner with sexual narcissism may believe they deserve sex and have a right to demand it whenever they want, even if you're working, sleeping, or occupied with something else. You see, straight away, yeah, we're into unreasonable behavior. Right? Beyond just, I think my girlfriend should shag me. It's like, no, stop work. And we're doing it now. Those are worlds apart as statements, aren't they? You know, expect sex in return for gifts or favors. That's your entitlement. That's the... Do you know what that's the I've paid for this night out, I bought you a meal kind of thing? I did this, I gave you a lift home. Now I want this. Feeling perfectly willing to trick, deceive, or manipulate you into having sex. Um, Deceive or manipulate. I just suddenly developed a problem with the word trick because that implies some sort of a lack of choice. And I think the key to this is that manipulation, right? Um, Look at it, right? To put it in another context, to remove sex from it entirely. It's like if I'm trying to sell you something, I can, and people who sell things indeed do, with advertising, manipulate you into wanting something. Look how happy this thing will make you. Look how this thing will improve your life. All that kind of thing. And you can manipulate somebody into wanting something. Then there's the deception, right? Where it's like, this beer will make you 1,000,000 times more attractive to women. And people buy the beer and it doesn't make you 1,000,000 times more attractive to women. That's your deception. But the trick, that's more like you thought you were buying one thing and you bought something else. There's a, or like you didn't know you were buying anything at all. There's a lack of, it doesn't quite seem to fit with deception and manipulation. I'm not saying it shouldn't be on the list, but I don't feel it goes with those other two things as easily as it's been put there. Because a trick, especially a sexual trick, like I don't know what that would actually involve. You know, like I thought we were just watching TV, but it turned out that we were having sex. Like that's not a trick. That's not something that happens. That's why that word doesn't sit right in that sentence. Um, but it's I think they're just trying to, they're using too many words to say the same thing. And I'm getting picky about semantics, and I'm not really disagreeing with what they've said. Uh, Sexual narcissists may care little about what you want in bed. Um, yeah, that fits in with everything else, doesn't it? And need a lot of validation and admiration for their sexual performance. I would imagine that if you're needing a lot of validation and admiration for your sexual performance, that might be difficult with the previous care little about what your partner wants in bed kind of thing, because you're not going to be getting a lot of admiration for your sexual performance if you don't care about what your partner wants in bed, are you? That's that is the dictionary definition of a crap shag. So to actually get true validation and true admiration, one needs to actually be good at things. And kidding yourself that you are when you're not is a very narcissistic thing to do. And that's the next thing. Believe they have superior sexual skills and that everyone else considers them fantastic sexual partners. That's the same thing. They've written that twice. And yeah, it's all well and good thinking that, but reality will come knocking on the door hard with that. And that's going to cause that reality shattering moment right? That undeniable proof that the world is not as you are making it out to be, which often just causes emotional collapse, right? There's once your constricted world is brought down around you, then you're pretty much screwed. Um, React poorly when you refuse sex or fail to offer enough praise or approval. This is all, of course, put you down often to manipulate you more easily. Feel bothered or dissatisfied by the idea that others are having more sex or better sex than they are. Yeah. It's that ranking again. It's that more sex you can quantify because that's a thing. You can quantify that. Better sex is you can't count that like you can for the regularity of sex. It's a weird subjective thing. And so it's got to be this idea, that this dissatisfaction with the idea that other people are having better sex. It's coming from an external source. Because something has got to be telling you what better sex is. And then you've got to be upset that you're not doing that. I am inclined to start pointing the finger at pornography for this. For creating a situation in some people's minds of, this is the sex you should be having. This is presenting that image of, getting my air quote things out again, idealized sexual lifestyle and activity, whatever. Like, if porn is the peak of sexuality and you're not doing that level of thing, then you're less than. And you're missing out on. And all of that. And that's not necessarily true, is it? That's specifically what we're talking about here. There's this... that obsession with that. That if you aren't doing that, then you are in some way losing. I mean, look, it's okay to want to do these things. If you want to have a pornographic style sex life, cool, go for it. Good luck with that. Have fun. But we're talking about how you react when that doesn't happen, how that makes you feel, and what you are willing to go through, or more importantly, what you are willing to put others through in order to get that for yourself. And clearly in the world of sexual narcissism, people are willing to put others through quite a lot. Right? I mean, because we're talking, God, I mean, this is talking about, we've seen stuff talking about getting therapy and surviving abuse and that sort of thing. And this is all sexually slanted stuff. And it's hurting other people to drag you along. I kind of lost my train of thought on that a little bit, but... Oh no, I was talking about with the porn and the obsession. It is that obsession when it doesn't happen, when you don't get that sex life, because that sex life is not real. And nobody can live like that. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. What is this in the grey box? While we want to emphasize not everyone with sexual narcissism will cheat or attempt sexual assault. That came as if from nowhere. Experts have found evidence to suggest links between sexual narcissism and infidelity, as well as sexual aggression, including sexual coercion and rape. Right, let's click on sexual aggression because I want to know. This is another abstract. But is this going to describe to us what they mean by sexual aggression? Linking narcissism to sexual aggression, linking contribution. Researchers use global measures of narcissism not sensitive to whether components of narcissism are activated in sexual versus non-sexual. This is already boring. Okay, right. Study 2 demonstrated that sexual narcissism was associated with reports of frequency of sexual aggression, 3 specific types of sexual aggression: unwanted sexual contact, sexual coercion, and attempted/completed rape. Now I know what we're talking about. Thank you very much, Mr. Abstract. That's what we're talking about. We are talking about violent things. It's that taking what you want thing, isn't it? It's that it's very old-timey misogynistic behavior. It feels like a description of a Bond film, to be perfectly honest. It's oh, howdy in the chat room. Don't worry about using a smiley. It's fine. We're all happy here. Okay, so that's what we mean by sexual aggression. We are talking about sexual assault, that sort of thing. And it's going to come from a place of that entitlement, and that thing is there. I can take that, dehumanizing somebody, and the power trip from being able to do that. And that's like a lot of sexual assault right there, isn't it? That's what that tends to be. I've given up on the idea of monetizing this live stream now. One of the things I'm supposed to avoid talking about for adverts is like difficult topics, and now we're onto sexual assault and rape and that kind of thing. So okay, that ship has sailed. It's a taking. It's an entitlement. It's screwed up. That attempt, that, because I can't see. Right. I feel like that's a behavior that is an either or. Okay. Right. Needing a lot of validation for and admiration for their sexual performance, reacting poorly when you refuse sex or offer praise and approval. Actually, maybe not that one, but believe they have superior sexual skills that everyone else considers them fantastic sexual partners. These do not jive with the sexual aggression. And it feels like some of these are the result of others breaking down. So I can see how you would have somebody that believes they have the superior sexual skills and everyone considers them fantastic sexual partners, needs a lot of validation, willing to manipulate somebody into sex, that sort of thing. And when that reality is shattered by somebody not going for it, by turning them down, by breaking that fragile ego wall of, I'm amazing in bed, I'm so attractive, everyone wants to sleep with me. By breaking that, by saying no, as I said earlier, that clearly will lead to some potential serious breakdown. And that's what this leads to, you know, that sort of thing. Um, it's horrible. It's terrifying. Um, and I feel like that's something like I don't know how a person would avoid that, right? Because there's, and look, this is clearly an issue anyway, potentially for people. That fear of turning someone down, that fear of saying no to a potentially aggressive man. Um, and this just sort of backs that up, like this idea that there's people with intense sexual narcissism floating around, and just sort of zeroing in on people. Like, I've picked you. You're gonna want to sleep with me tonight. And what do you do about that? I I don't know. It's terrifying to me, and I don't fear it happening to me. Um, I don't know what you do about that. This is that clear sort of. This is the person who's gonna go nuts when you tell them no. How do you tell somebody no like that? It's absolutely horrifying. And this is sort of behavior that I see examples of online. You know, I see examples of reactions like that from men posted to Reddit and stuff like that. It's not a rare thing. It's not a like I I'm very sure every woman will have that story of the guy that she was terrified to say no to. Sexual narcissist, entitlement, but also this. I grow increasingly terrified of the spread of these attitudes. It's a horrible, horrible thing. This entitlement, this dehumanizing of women in particular, because like I say, let's get real. This is the sort of stuff that this is men doing. And yet, I'm very sure we can find a woman and we can point to this woman and go, look, she did it too. It's not just men. But in a room with 100 people and 99 men in it, it doesn't really counteract the point I'm making. You know? Are there different types of sexual narcissism? Existing evidence hasn't outlined specific subtypes of sexual narcissism. Thank God, because it's already a subtype of narcissism, is it? But it's important to understand that this behavior pattern can show up in different ways. Like narcissism, it occurs on something of a spectrum. Higher levels of sexual narcissism will typically translate to a more severe, persistent pattern of behavior. Well, let's not acknowledge that narcissists can all behave differently from each other and in different ways, surely. We'll be back onto a list of 10 things all narcissists do soon. Not everyone with sexual narcissism will show all potential signs or attempt to exploit or coerce partners. Some people may simply seem more inconsiderate than aggressive when it comes to sex. Maybe they require a lot of admiration and approval in order to boost their sense of self-worth, or they insist on having sex the way they like instead of asking about your interests. I just love the way they've put that. I just love the way they've put that. That's like I should ask about her interests. When you don't praise them, they might respond by withholding affection and intimacy. Yeah. Still, these certainly aren't healthy or positive sexual behaviors, and this lack of empathy can lead to plenty of distress. This bit feels like it's written by a different person. What should you do if you recognize this in yourself? Stop it. Perhaps a few of your past partners have mentioned some of the above signs, or you've noticed them yourself and you're wondering how you can begin building healthier sexual relationships. Recognizing these characteristics is a great first step toward making change. Without the willingness to change, you're less likely to see improvement, so you're on the right track. Oh, I'm giggling at it now. Sorry if this is inappropriate. I know we were talking about some heavy stuff earlier, but, it got silly here. Remember, partnered sex takes at least two people. There's nothing wrong with wanting to enjoy a specific type of sex, but in order to enjoy healthy, respectful sexual interactions, you'll also need to consider the needs of other people around you. Oh, yeah. Another way of looking at this might involve asking yourself and them what you can do to help them enjoy the encounter too. It never hurts to have a conversation about boundaries and what you're both looking for, sexually speaking, before having sex with anyone new. This just got a bit after school, especially. Discussing these things regularly with long term partners can also have a positive impact on your relationship. It's also worth exploring how feelings of sexual confidence or superiority might affect your underlying motives for pursuing sex. Sex is more than a way to earn admiration and approval. Well, it is. Sure, it's fun and feels good, but beyond that, it offers the chance to connect with partners on a deeper emotional level and develop more fulfilling relationships. When you're willing to put in the effort, boosting empathy is absolutely possible. Greater empathy and consideration for your partner can offer several benefits, including better sex and a stronger relationship. A healthier relationship can in turn lead to improved well being and overall satisfaction with life. So, thank you. If you have a happy relationship, you will be happier in life than if you don't. How's the best way if you what if you recognize this in a partner? The best way to handle the situation can depend on your partner as well as their typical behavior towards you. If they generally seem to care about you and show an interest in maintaining your relationship, an open conversation can offer a place to start. A little bit of relationship advice: an open conversation is a good place to start with anything. I mean, what's your alternative that's a better idea than actually talking to your partner? What do you have for me? I mean, feel free to come back to me on that one with something better, but for example, you might say, oh, this is going to be good. I enjoy having sex with you, and I consider physical intimacy an important part of our relationship. But it's frustrating when I say I'm not feeling it, and you instantly shut me out. I'm not rejecting you, but I don't solely exist to serve your sexual needs either. Don't say that to somebody. Please word it differently. Um, If this relationship is going to work, I need respect and understanding from you when I'm not in the mood for sex. I don't want to have a relationship with someone who gives me the silent treatment or threatens to sleep with someone else. Right, there are some things you should just walk away from, and I'm gonna put that on the list. It may also help to gently remind you that that your sexual interests matter too. We have fun during sex, but I noticed you almost always choose where and what we do. I'm wondering if we can try a few ideas. My ideas next time. Okay. Um, that couple obviously have quite an interesting sex life in the first place. Anyway, there and yeah. So that was an odd one. That last one. I don't like these things. Not. I get what they're going. I don't know that it doesn't sit right in terms of how to approach a narcissist with something. My issue isn't with the points they're making. It's I feel like there's a more effective way of communicating those same points. I'm just trying to process it as quickly as I can. As it says, these things depend on your narcissist and the things they're doing or not doing. And getting through to someone with MPD on anything is not necessarily an easy thing to do. And in particular, when you go to them with your feelings and those sentences that start with, "You've made me feel like dot dot dot," then these things get darvoed and shut down straight away. And that is true of sort of when you bring a problem to a narcissist, which is essentially what we're talking about here, right? We've put a sexual slant on it, but it's the same thing. It's it is in what it will be interpreted as a criticism, whether it is put like that or not. And no amount of carefully wording things gets them through, because they're all interpreted as criticism. I think, right, I think what I'm sort of stumbling over is that I am usually very hesitant to say, to sort of walk away from somebody, from your narcissist, from whatever. But these become potentially dangerous and harmful behaviors. Not just he shouts a lot or he's embarrassing or whatever. It's like immediately harmful. Like injury, harmful, bad, right now kind of things. And there's some of this stuff that I just think, if somebody has done that to you, don't waste your time talking to them about it. Just go away from them and leave them on their own. Right? I don't. Maybe it's just me, but I don't know what. If someone in a relationship has coerced you into something and regularly coerced you into something, or sexually abused you, what way back is there from that in a relationship? Really? And so going through these things can potentially be harmful to you emotionally. I guess it depends on whether you want to sort of give your narcissist a chance. But as narcissists, this is the sort of thing where we have to pay attention and not react negatively when somebody comes to us with something they want to change, with something that they want us to stop doing or start doing, or whatever. But in general, don't. I wouldn't ever recommend that somebody stick around for a lot of this. God no, you're gonna get hurt. God, it's also such horrible stuff. Um, as I say, it's just I'm just curious about how we're telling people to confront narcissists, and I don't know that that's always a good idea. How can this affect you in the long term? A lack of empathy and consideration for other people's sexual needs doesn't bode well for fulfilling and satisfying relationships. I mean, this is it. Really, anxiety, depression, emptiness, anger, all of that sort of thing. When you're putting stuff on just sexuality rather than emotional connection, in the long term, this just leads to, I don't know. I hesitate to say you'll just be lonely forever, because that's bollocks, right? That's a made up thing. This whole like you have to be in a relationship to be happy. No, that's just completely false and a made up thing, and I think a very old world way of looking at things. And but at the same time, yeah, I think you're missing out on stuff in your life without a level of emotional connection with people, without that intimacy. And when, especially for a group of people that we're talking about who specifically have a worry that other people are having more and better sex, to write off the idea of sex with emotional connection is surely contradictory to that. Because I've had sex without emotional connection in my life, I've had sex with emotional connection in my life. I would say, and I think a lot of people would agree with me, that, look, at the very least, it's like another thing you can do, right? It doesn't fit in with that wanting more or better sex and not wanting an emotional connection ever. Because it's either it's a different kind of sex, it's more sex, it's better sex. And you're sort of missing out by pursuing your sexual narcissism things, which are about thinking that you've got the best sex life available, and you haven't. By Because you're pursuing this other thing. It's a self-destructing feedback loop of crap. God, this must be horrible. This must be horrible. Yeah. What is the bottom line? Sexual confidence is a great thing until that confidence becomes a sense of entitlement that leads to negative outcomes for others. I think that is a good bottom line. Therapy with a professional who specializes in sex and relationship counseling can help you begin to explore and work through problematic, entitled, or potentially harmful ideas about sexual behavior and develop skills for healthy and fulfilling relationships. A therapist can also offer support and guidance when your partner believes they deserve sex, attempts to manipulate you, or shows signs of other sexual narcissism. Yeah, okay. That feels about right. I mean, this article is going to say the same stuff. They ignore you after sex. They behave violently. They're serial cheaters. Like empathy. Blah blah. Yeah, okay. It certainly seems like it's. Where are we? So yeah, it seems a very difficult thing to pin down. You can see why I can't talk about this in 10 minutes. But it seems indisputably bad Like you don't want to behave like any of these things, and in like a lot of cluster B things, they might sound like positives to begin with, but then are very clearly not. And what we're looking at is extremes of behavior, that narcissism, that MPD trait coming out in a sexual area, which is an area with potentially a lot of harm to cause other people. Much more so than all the other realms narcissism seems to come out. And it seems to me it's the one that involves the most immediate potential physical danger. It was by no means exclusively the only one that involves immediate physical danger, but it seems a lot more obvious in that one in an unpleasant way. But it's that extreme, that going too far, that compulsion, that constant obsession with it all. Because too much of, we're not meant to focus too much on any one thing, right? That's not healthy. That's not good. Be varied. And a lack of that is a sign of a bad thing. It doesn't strike me as too much of a difficult thing to sort of notice that you're doing this. Like, you know how varied your interests are. You know what you're into, what you get up to, and that sort of thing. And you know what portion of that is taken up by your sex life in whatever form it takes. I've had friends, I've known people that you hear about what they do, what they're into. And the first question you have to ask is, but when do you do all of this? Like, you have a job. I know you do. So, like, evenings and weekends, is that enough time to do all of these things that you're talking about being into and doing? Because I have other things I do. I like to play video games and my guitar and other things like that, right? It's like I can't, my whole life isn't dedicated to my sex life. But there are people in the world who are. And I think, okay, to a certain extent, that's fine, right? That's fine. Have a great active sex life. Make sex almost like a hobby beyond the intimacy of a relationship or something like that. Fine. I'm not going to judge how you live your life or what is best for you. But don't become too obsessed with any one thing. Too obsessed seems like a bad thing, a bad way of putting that. You're obsessed or you're not. There aren't degrees. It's something. Anything is taking up all your time. So what if it's sex? If it was video games, it would be just as bad. If it was food, it would be just as bad. If it was bike riding, it would be just as bad. And you'd be getting in the way of people in the road, trying to pretend like you should be wearing tight, stretchy shorts like you're in the Tour de France. But really, you're just cycling down Halifax Road. Get out of the way. Stop riding 3 cyclists wide. I've got a life to lead. And a car. Anyway. I'm satisfied that I am not a sexual narcissist. I'm on board with that. And while I feel like I feel like this is one area where there will be a lot of people who will exhibit these behaviors and these traits without triggering the full MPD criteria. Because some of these things are taught, right? Some of these things are just toxic masculinity and, patriarchal entitlement. And it's like we're breeding it. We're encouraging sexual narcissism in the wider population, certainly in men. And I feel like this will not end well, one way or another. This will not end well. But anyway, I'm actually going to leave it there tonight. It's been a quiet Monday night, but I enjoyed this, and I enjoyed hanging out with everybody. Thank you to everybody who came in and watched for a bit and stuff like that. I'll be back next Monday with more of these, because I do like doing them, and it lets me talk about stuff that, well, I can bang on for hours about, quite frankly, which is pretty cool. I don't know. If you have any suggestions, then let me know. Go and join the Discord as well if you're watching this and haven't signed up as well. Could really do with your support, and do likes and shares and all of that. Sharing posts on social media is just massively helpful, as is liking YouTube videos and that sort of thing. So thank you to everybody for your support. It's been awesome. And you take care. And I'll be back on Wednesday with tomorrow with a podcast. Then a video on Wednesday and Friday, probably. I'll try and do some other stuff in between and get some stuff out on Patreon. Oh, there'll be a Patreon video this week as well at some point. So again, go and sign up to Patreon. I'll see you later. You take care. Bye-bye, everybody.